Now what we've seen here is that we can add one div and give it some border, margin, and padding to move things around on the page. Cool? I'm going to add another div up here that surrounds this astro.io, put a div right there, like that, and put the astro.io inside that. Now this looks a little bit nicer, we're getting pretty close here, but I don't have an image yet. Maybe I should put an image in there, what do you think? Let's get an image in there, shall we? So I'm gonna look up an image of myself. Jeff Astor teacher. Let's see if that comes up. Here we are, there's me. Let's get this picture. Open image in new tab. I'm going to copy this one. I think that's a long link. I'm going to take it and I'm going to put an image tag right next to this paragraph tag. If you don't remember how to do images, you do them like this. IMG src equals. This src, that's called an attribute. And the img is the actual image tag itself. Now, if I put the link to my image in there, I should get an image. Whoa, the image is way too big. Notice that? How do we make images smaller again? Anyone remember? When you go to our CSS. What do we do in the CSS? IMG, squiggly brackets, that's right. And what should I do to change its width?
Put width, and then you put the width you want.
Let's put 40%. Exactly right. I like the way you think. Let's see what that did for us. Oh, there we go. That looks pretty nice. It's getting there, right? Let's say 60%. Let's go 80%. Let's go 90%. Let's go 100%. Oh man, I look good. Amazing. I did, yeah, man. I looked. That was 21-year-old me. Maybe I was 22 at this time. No, I was not. I was just silly. You're right. You're absolutely right. I should have. That's my bad. Now you'll notice something else here. Do you notice that there's some space on the top and bottom that we can't get rid of? Do you see that? There's some white space up here. I don't like that white space. If we look at our slides, you'll see that this website right here doesn't have any space at the top. Or if it does, that space has a color on it. What we can do is we can change the entire body of the page to have no space around it. We're going to say at the very top, I'm going to say the body should have a margin of 0. And that gets rid of all the space around everything on the page. So this goes up against the very top of the page, and it ends at the very bottom of the page. This actually looks a lot nicer. We're starting to get something that looks a little bit better, aren't we? But we have two problems here. The first problem is that both of these divs are the same color. What if I want to make one of these divs a different color? We have two divs now. You notice that? We have a div up here and a div down here. How do we pick a different div? How do we style one div versus another div? How do we do that?
Could we add an extra character?
You can add an extra character to it. You can add something extra to the div to make it different than all the other ones. That's absolutely right. We call this a class. So I can give this div up here a class equals navbar. And I can call this div right here class equals bless you. I can say this div is a class equals of content. And you can name them whatever you want. You can think of both of those as name tags for the content. For each of the divs, you give them a name tag, and then you can tell that name tag how to be styled. It makes your life really easy. So all you do, let me reiterate this because this is maybe the most important thing you're going to learn. If you want to style something different than the other ones, you give it a class. So in the opening tag, you give it an attribute here called class. you say class equals, and then you give it a name inside quotations. Whatever name you give it is how you style it. So right here, I'm going to say, to style a nav bar, how do you think I write the word, how do I think I select the div with a class of nav bar? Anyone want to take a guess? How do I select this div up here with a class of nav bar? Okay, let's try it. Let's say nav bar, just like that. Almost perfect, but here's the problem. Whenever you have a class, instead of just writing the word navbar, you select it by putting a dot in front of it. Dot navbar. And then I can say width 100%, margin 0. And now it goes all the way across the page. Let's give it a background of Dodger blue. Or let's give it like a light, yeah, let's go Dodger blue, because we can. And now it's a different color than the other div. Do you notice that? So you can change the style of one div versus another div by giving it a name tag, which we call a class. And then you select that div by putting dot, and you give it its own style, like this. Now that might be a little confusing the first time you do it, but if you do it a bunch, it'll start to make a little more sense here. You style things differently by giving them a class, and then you select the class in the CSS by saying dot and then the name of the class. Absolutely. And that's all the code I have. I'm going to send this to you in Slack, so if you're lost, it's okay. You'll be able to look at all this code really quickly. But what I'm going to have you do right now is I'm going to have you look at the profile pages you made yesterday. And instead of the profile page for yourself, you're going to partner up with somebody, and you're going to make a profile page for them with all of the information, except now you can give things classes and style them differently so they look a lot nicer. It'll allow you to move things around on the page, to go to different positions on the page, to center things, to make things look a little nicer. But before I do that, I want to show you one more thing. Notice how all the font is the same? You guys see that? All the font here is exactly the same. There is a way to change that. You can give things a font family and give it, say, something like Helvetica, and it'll now be a different font. You can give it a font size of like 200% or 300% or 400, 500%. And now you get some big old text. Check that out. That looks lovely-ish. Astro.io. That's a big font. So there's two ways to change the font. You can change the kind of font. You can pick Helvetica or like Georgia or like sans serif. You can pick all different kinds of ones. I'll show you all of them later. Arial, I think, is one. There you go. Courier. Let's see, what other ones are there? Monospace, I think, is one. There you go. So you can pick a bunch of different fonts here to choose from, and you could tell the font how big to be. Like so. I'm going to keep mine at 300%, and so it'll make all the font bigger. And so what we're going to do right now is I'm going to give you all this code, and you are going to make a profile page for the person next to you using all the things that we have learned over the last 20 minutes or so. And yesterday's lesson, or last class's lesson. But before I do that, I'm going to paste all this code into Slack so that you all have it as a reference guide. Now remember, what you're building from last class is this. You're building a profile page for them with the biography, images, hobbies, favorite foods, links to external sites, favorite quotes, a bucket list, and now you'll be able to style it much nicer. So I also want you to add a nav bar, some images, center some text, give it some backgrounds, and some extra divs. If you need my help, let me know. But that is all I have for you for right now. Does anyone have any questions for me? Amazing.